If you're looking to improve your life and make some sustainable changes, I've got a game for you. Okay, so for this game, we're going to be using the field of dopamine. And there are a couple of rules here because the goal of this game is to learn. The goal of the game is to learn, which brings me to our rules. Rule number 1, just because you're winning doesn't mean you've won. Same applies to rule number 2, just because you're losing doesn't mean you've lost. Alright, so losing is a mindset, and I'm going to explain this. We know what the field is, but who are the players? We've got some key players. On our end, we've got going to the gym consistently. We've got good diet, and we've got some good sleep. And on the other end of the field, we have fast foods. We've got no sleep, as well as habits. And when I talk about habits, I'm talking about those detrimental habits that we end up binging. And just a disclaimer, I'm talking about drinking, going out and partying. And no, before you click off this video, I'm not saying that these things are bad for you, but everything in moderation. Because you know that feeling when you've had a very, very rough night and you know you shouldn't have gone as hard as you have. But anyway, how do we get the ball into the W? Well, we end up doing things consistently. Consistency is key. We go to the gym, we pass the ball up the field. We get tackled by some fast foods, alright? So this pushes our dopamine. Yes, it gives us a little bit of a high, but obviously it drops us to a level where we might not be functioning optimally. From there, we end up going to the gym more consistently again. We end up sleeping more consistently until the ball is on the W, until we actually are winning. But as rule number 1 goes, just because you're winning doesn't mean you've won. And you know this feeling if you have been winning and you've been consistently feeling good, because what do you feel when the ball is at the W? Well, you feel productive, you feel present, and actually there's WB. Well-being. You feel a heightened sense of well-being, and we know just how easy it is to lose that, because this is what forces us or keeps us in that self-improvement trap. Right, so from here, how do we start losing again? Well, we go out on a little bit of a binge, so we get tackled. Of course, we end up not sleeping as great as we want to. We overindulge in fast foods, we keep binging those habits, and then we end up losing. But as rule number 2 states, just because you're losing doesn't mean you've lost. But you know that feeling, because when we are at this end of the field, what do we feel? We feel tired, we feel anxious, we feel imbalanced. Our work-life ratio is now tipped over. So how do we start winning again? Of course, we start implementing our habits. And this is what I mean by just because you're losing doesn't mean you've lost. If you feel like you're in a little bit of a rut, we're obviously over here, right? Worst case scenario, you're not being productive, you're not feeling the heightened sense of well-being that we also chase after, that keeps us addicted to the self-improvement game, right? But this is when it's important to know that we have to be gentle with ourselves, we have to be kind to ourselves, and as counterintuitive as it seems, talking down to ourselves isn't going to increase our ability to do well. What will increase our ability to do well is building systems in place, building structures which will help us once again push the ball back up the field. And again, I'm not saying it's wrong, because you could get tackled halfway by fast foods and poor habits, but you can always win. You can always win that ball back and start pushing it back up the field again. But one of the key players, which we haven't spoken about yet, is being mindful. Being mindful when you feel you are going on a little bit of a slippery slope. It's being mindful of your triggers. It's being mindful of what's keeping you down. It's being mindful of what's seducing you back into those negative patterns and negative behaviors. All I'm saying is, please be mindful, and just because you're losing doesn't mean you've lost.